Okay, how about now? I bet you there's audio now.
There's audio now. This is good.
That's right. Sorry, everybody, we had a little technical difficulties. Not sure what Facebook is doing to us.
It looked like it blanked us out for some reason.
Yeah, it's doing something.
So we're on another page.
That's right.
Hopefully you got our message on the regular page to shift over here
That's right.
to the regular Jimmy Doan page.
That's right. This is the Jimmy Doan Show. We are live twice a week at 4 o'clock. Technical difficulties notwithstanding.
On Wednesdays and Sundays.
That's right. So thanks for tuning in. And
I love it, tuning in, like you actually tune.
that's right. You got to tune in these days.
Yeah. Like when you take a video, it's film.
That's right. That's what happens.
Film at 11.
Those are the words.
Yep. Okay, well, you're higher than me.
Yes, I am. Well, watch this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, lots of news.
Yes.
The count goes on.
In Florida.
Yeah.
The election. Yes.
Yeah. So,
but no news there. I
no
mean,
news.
look, this is in the judge's hands. They'll figure it out.
yeah.
They will. What? I mean, look.
Well, of course, I was listening to Rush today, and they said that the judge, this girl was appointed by, apparently she's an Obama lover or something, and was, so there's some chance that she might not.
I have faith in the judicial system and the judiciary.
God love you.
I'm telling you, man, they are
Oh.
and they are the most impartial of any of the officials. Because they're insulated. They're highly insulated. So
All right.
they don't really care. They're in their own universe. Don't get affected much at all by the legislature or the executive. So they'll let it roll. They'll figure it out. So
Okay. Washington, let's see, a couple things happened. Let me just see here real quick. Two notable deaths.
yes.
Did we talk about Stanley?
No, he hadn't died yet.
Yeah,
That's. I was going to
he
wait.
died now.
Yeah, I know.
95 years old,
Yeah.
and of course, a very famous. He had apparently put together over about 100 super characters or whatever's over his lengthy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this we're talking, but he's talking about 70 years worth or something like that.
61 is when he started, something like that.
No, it was before that, I think.
I don't think so. Fantastic Four, 1961, Silver Age of comic books, basically. Started Marvel Comics with Jack
so that would have been 58 years of it. Yeah. Okay, or 57. Yeah. Okay, fine. I can buy that.
He's no, he was awesome, and
And of course, he even did a cameo on. We tip our hat. A cameo on Big Bang.
oh, did he? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he did cameos in all of his movies.
Yeah.
There's a great montage online.
Yeah.
So who's the other guy?
The other guy was Douglas Rain.
Oh yes.
Douglas Rain. And Mrs. Jimmy said, "Good riddance to bad rubbish."
Yeah,
For
yeah.
those of you who don't know, he's an acclaimed Shakespearean actor.
Yeah.
He died at the age of 90. Mm-hmm. But what is he most famous for in our universe?
The HAL 9000.
The
computer.
HAL 9000.
That's right. He is the voice of the HAL 9000.
I mean,
Tremendous tour de force acting job in that.
oh my God. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that.
That voice talks to Mrs. Jimmy's
Oh
core.
my God, it's just unbelievable what she said. And I said, well, it's a computer. He can't die.
Yeah, right. No, he's immortalized. No, that's right. I said, you don't have to worry about him saying anything else. And I thought, well, now with that replicating software they have, he can say anything.
Right.
So-
It's just, so anyway, those are the
live
two,
forever.
two notable deaths, right? Well, Stan Lee's comics are going to live on quite a while, you can bet.
Oh, man.
So-
Yeah, I got a couple thousand of them in the other room.
Jeez.
So
Do you have number one?
I used to. I had number one of Avengers until a couple years ago, yeah.
And then we needed money.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
I got a bunch of them, though.
So anyway, the U.S. analysts said Monday that they've located more than half of an estimated 20 secret North Korean missile development sites, highlighting the challenge of the Trump administration faces in ensuring that North Korea complies with any eventual agreement to end its nuclear and missile programs. Now, what I find interesting is that they have found half of an estimated 20 sites.
Right.
So where are the other 10? I mean, what?
I don't know. Maybe they looked over half the area that they suspected them to be in, or something like that.
Well, anyway, the findings were released amid signs of the administrators' negotiations with the North has stalled. Draw on commercial satellite imagery to identify 13 secret facilities used to produce missiles and related technology. So what they're thinking is that Pyongyang or whatever is continuing on in spite of the stuff. Now, I personally have my doubts about this. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if this is a bit of a false flag, because what they've said is, although the sites are not launch facilities, and in some cases are rudimentary, the authors report from the Center for Strategic and International Studies say that they are hidden. Well, they're rudimentary, they're hidden, they're under a tree. And they're not a launch facility.
I think it would be crazy to assume that North Korea is not continuing to pursue its nuclear agenda.
This is not nuclear, of course. This is just missiles.
Okay, well, still, that's part of it, the delivery system.
Right.
So, from my perspective, they did all they could do. The administration did all it could do by going over there, pressuring him, I guess, offering him some cash, I'm sure. And you just hope that they set up a good deal. My thought was that he would have set up a good deal, that Kim would break the deal, but at least it would be a step in the direction of negotiations, and there would be some accomplishments like the blowing up of the mountain or whatever it is.
Maybe I'm naive, but I tend to think that this is. I don't believe.
What kind of a
guys.
flag? What do you think? You think somebody's trying to prod the administration into launching an attack or something?
Yeah.
Like this is Bolton?
Yeah. You get the John Bolton people.
Right.
These guys they would do anything to start a war. You think about it. They did a James Bond movie about this.
Yeah, but that's a movie. It's like I don't think they're that. Even the John Boltons are that aggressive. I think that they would respond to any sort of aggression
But
faster.
what counts as aggression? In this day and age.
Well, imminent. It's an imminent attack, is what it is, or imminent danger. And look, it's measurable. You can make the case for imminence, and then you can falsify the case for him. Like the weapons of mass destruction case against Iraq before we went into there. Mm-hmm. That was a bogus assertion of an imminent threat to the United States, and we knew it because nobody would really say the words. They finally tricked Colin Powell into going out there and saying that they know more than you know. Well, the only conceivable implication from that is that they've got the weapons. So, okay, they tricked him into saying that. He's regretted it ever since. Nobody is coming out and saying that, they've got these weapons and their fingers on the button kind of a thing.
Well, the simple fact is this. If you don't launch missiles or test A-bombs, you got nothing. I'm sorry. You can have your rudimentary facility buried under a tree someplace, but I'm telling you, until you actually launch. I was watching, for instance, the story. It was called the Behind the Scenes, the Unsung Heroes of Apollo. It's on Netflix, and they interviewed all the engineers and all these people. They talked about the failures and the fallbacks and all this kind of stuff that went on. But what you don't realize, what a lot of people don't realize, is the number of failures. Come on, give me a break. 100% oxygen in a tank, and that thing, and all the stuff, all the times that before they got to there, the blow-ups on the
So what are you trying to say? They're not a threat to us.
No, that's what I'm saying.
I'm with you. No, I don't think anybody thinks
no
they're a
threat.
Right.
Well, again, what they're saying is that, as far as I'm concerned, continue on with the joining up of the thing, do what you call from north and south, blah blah blah. And if he's under a tree in a tunnel someplace, working on something, so what?
Well, and I totally agree with you. But here's my thought: if I were in the administration, I would have a guy like Michael Belton out there playing bad cop. You have a guy go out there and say, "Look at that! Well, look what they're doing over there! Oh my God, they're getting out of control. We need to be bombed out of existence." You'd have at least one guy. It would be a low-level guy, like 2 tiers down. It wouldn't be somebody right next to the president. But
the president's already done it.
Well, no,
My button's bigger than yours.
Yes, but he also does the buddy up game.
Oh, I know.
He plays good cop.
Oh no, he totally does.
And that's exactly what you would do, from my perspective. Is you would say, "Look, Mr. Dictator, don't worry about Bolton. I got him. He's my.
Don't worry about
Don't
Bolton.
worry about it. I got it. Okay. But by the way, keep your shit in line because we got people beneath me who want to blow your country
If
up.
something happens to me,
That's it. That's it. Exactly. That's what you would say. That's what you would. That's just gamesmanship. So.
yeah, right.
So all right. Well, so what else we got?
So anyway, that was that was the thing. Now, along the same lines of launches, I found this rather. In China's new space odyssey, 80 startups race to get into orbit.
Wow.
These are private companies in China. Shanghai space is corporate China's newest frontier, as Chinese startups prepare to boldly go head to head with the likes of Elon Musk, SpaceX, and Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin LLC.
Yeah, good luck.
A slice. Well, you don't be too. Don't look. They got 80 people.
Hey,
now,
it's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science. Well, apparently the majority of them are doing satellite development and software development.
Okay.
But at least as it showed in late October, with about 80 commercial Chinese space technology startups now operating and competition heating up. That's between the 80 there's competition. Can't get much better than that.
No.
And breakthroughs are likely to soon outnumber the disappointments, analysts say. 3 years ago, no one imagined that private Chinese company could do this. Now think about it. I don't know how long Elon Musk or these people have been in it, but it's been a lot more than 3 years.
Yeah, but not much more. You said not a lot more than 3 years.
No. So anyway, the bottom line is that the private sector in China is very strong, and China has ambitious plans for its space program. Coming missions include the launch of an unmanned lunar lander in December. In a
Which
month.
is nice.
A Beijing consultancy. Let's see. Well, a Mars lander is due to blast off in 2020, next year. Not next year.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Okay, and they're completing their Beidou satellite navigation system, which is supposed to compete with our GPS.
Okay.
And of course, it's a later model, so you
Come on, China.
Yeah, right. Okay. Anyway, it's due for completion in 2020. Most of the roughly 80 Chinese space startups counted by Mr. Lan are building satellites and related software, while as many as 10 are developing launch vehicles, and they expect to go ahead and start launching. But the point is, if you've got 10 competition people in the private sector in China,
Right?
that is a far cry from the Chi-Com, and what do you call it, the dictatorial, you do it the state way.
Yeah.
I mean, if they have loosed the hounds of private enterprise.
Well, it sounds like what we talked about last time. They seem to have latched on to the concept.
Well, what they're doing is they're doing a little bit about what we do here, the same kind of thing, in that the government wants those people to compete and develop these really great, fairly inexpensive launch vehicles so they can put their satellites on there.
Yeah.
And that's what they do here with us. Of course, we have private satellites essentially that launch all our stuff.
Sort of more of a fascist model than a socialist model.
Well,
get them on the back end.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We will. Okay. Next item we talked about last time about the mad dash. The starting gamut like the Kentucky Derby of the dozen or 15 runners for the presidency started the day after, and the latest one that I saw is this guy Richard Ojeda, West Virginia lawmaker who led the teacher strikes, will run for president.
Okay.
Okay, his claim to fame is his case for candidacy is, he says, the Democratic Party has gotten away from its roots, and he has the unique ability to win over white, black, and brown working class coalition because Trump is a populist fraud.
Right.
So anyway, that's him and Cory Booker, of course, is decided. I think there's 2 or 3 others that are pretty well, almost just about announced. Hillary has said,
Heck yeah, man.
she's not ruling it out. Well, what I think what's kind of interesting is, speaking of teachers, let me segue into this. Dr. James Jones, he says, homeschooling is damaging Polk County system. That's his Polk County, not our Polk County, but the one up near Cincinnati, in Ohio, I think, Polk County, Ohio. Among this year's challenges was the fact that Jones and his staff were forced to cut the 2017-18 budget, including some teaching positions. The reduction was not in local funding, which is only a small percentage of financing needed for Polk County schools, but in state funding based on average daily attendance. Now, we have the same thing here. I think, I could be wrong on this, call me up, go Google it or something, but I believe that roughly 2/3 of the budget here in Alachua County comes from either the state or the feds.
Okay.
In spite of the fact that my school taxes are huge, because but that apparently only accounts for about 1/3 of the school budget.
Okay.
But what he's saying is that the problem, and here is the same thing, what they do is they have count 'em up day or something like that. And what happens is they have all the kids make sure that they show up, they bring their brothers, mothers, they bring their dolls, they bring their robo, whatever it is in there, and they get counted that day, and so that they can get the funding based on attendance.
Right.
So he says, we lost 70 students, which equates to $500,000, he says, in lost revenue and lost funding. He says of the 70 students Polk County lost, almost all went to homeschooling. Well, of course, guess what? That takes the burden off of the school. I mean, they don't have to give them lunch or a room, or the point is, if they all went to homeschooling, then there might not be a public school system, but so what? They'd be getting educated. He and his staff have taken steps to offset this trend. This is what's great about competition, to offset this trend. Of course, it's the government trying to offset the trend, so they're going to blow it. But anyway, with the start of an innovative learning, capital I, capital L, innovative learning program, which allows them more freedom than the traditional classroom setting. Over the past 5 years, there have been new standards, tests, and evaluations, which have been tough on our sisters in our school system. And homeschooling is causing the bottom to fall out of public education. Okay, what's interesting is they're adapting the market. They're part of the market, whether they like it or not. That's the beauty of this, is that they may be, dictatorial to collect their money at the point of a gun to finance the public schools, but even they are subject to market forces. And of course, what he says is, there's a whole new subculture regarding homeschooling, and no one hates it more than me. Now, here's a guy who is the head of the school system in Polk County, Ohio, whatever it is. He hates homeschooling. What is wrong with you? Take out the word home. You hate schooling.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, but this is absolutely just an outgrowth of the fact that his entire identity is wrapped up in the public school system.
No question. And it is here in Alachua County. You have the same thing. We just got through with an election here, where the half cent or the whatever it was for the children, and there was another thing for out of school for the children.
Right.
They had another mill or something on the property taxes, and then they had a half cent. I think an increase in the sales tax for the children.
Right.
So how can you lose on that? And everybody's just so happy about that. Anyway,
if you believe in the socialist paradise utopia, then of course.
yeah. Well, what's interesting is the idea, of course, has always been that without a government-run school system, people just be stupid.
Right.
And not know anything and just go around like Neanderthals with their knuckles dragging on the ground.
I understand.
Yeah, okay.
Well, and it contradicts reality from the standpoint of, if people want education, then they'll pay for it. That's just
Right.
what will happen.
One way or the other. I
Right.
mean, as I say, I have a nephew or a nephew that was homeschooled by my niece, and for the first, 8-10 years or something like that, and they were doing great. But it does take some work.
Sure.
I mean, you don't go out and have a job while you're homeschooling. But they have. But of course, the other thing about homeschooling is that they say, well, they don't socialize. Well, I got news for you. These kids, especially her kids, they socialize. They went and played hockey almost every day. I mean, they had a ton of friends. I went to one of their hockey matches,
Right.
and so forth. I mean, they had friends all over the place. They had probably more friends than I did in elementary.
I think you're preaching to the choir a little bit from the standpoint of I'm with you on I don't see any detriment to parents taking control of their children's education and dealing with that. I mean that's not a bad system.
No. Okay. Next item. This is one of the things that is almost never talked about because one of the things you have to talk about is what the Democrats are going to do for revenge starting January 2nd. where they're going to start subpoenaing everybody in sight, and then all that's the big diversionary tactics. Here's what really is the matter, though. U.S. is on course to spend more on debt than defense. Rising interest costs
Yes.
could crowd out, and here's what I love about this, could crowd out other government spending priorities and rattle markets. One of the things that I find interesting is that when they talk about crowding out, the government is the ultimate crowder-outer.
Oh yeah.
Because like when you have the public school system, as we were just talking about, they crowd out because you have to pay twice if you send your kid to a private school. I mean,
Right.
And the point is that they crowd out the private enterprise and then say, well, it wouldn't work anyway. Well, whatever they say. It's just, it's interesting. So here.
Well, they say it isn't working. Look, it's not there.
Right.
After they've already taken the money that would have supported it.
That would, exactly, precisely correct. So now they're all upset because the rising interest costs could crowd out other government spending priorities and rattle the markets in the past
Who's
decade.
upset about that? Nobody. Like you said, nobody cares. I haven't heard a peep out of anybody about the budget or the deficits or this is the first thing that we've heard since like the first election, about any sort of.
But you do understand how important this is.
Oh, I'm with you.
This is way beyond critical compared to, did Trump pay off some hooker?
Well, how about this? This is at 5% interest rates, right?
No, not even 5.
Okay.
It's like 3.
So if we went to
3.5.
1982 interest rates,
5.5. No, we'd be buried.
it would be triple.
Yeah.
right?
Well, we'd be at least double. The point being that if you think that interest rates right now, let me just continue on here. The interest on the past decade, U.S. debt held by the public has risen to $15.9 trillion. Now that's not all the public debt, but that's part of it. And it's not all the debt. From 5.1 trillion, it's tripled. But financing has not been a problem. Why? Because we've had low inflation and low interest rates. I mean, interest rates have been hovering around 1% for the past 7 or 8 years. Not suddenly, but I mean gradually, the interest rates are heading up towards 3.5%. The Treasury bonds were high in demand because the dollar is kind of the universal currency, and other countries were willing to take the 1% and buy the bonds, even though we were inflating it more than that. However, it's changing. Interest rates are rising, and inflation normalizes around the Fed Reserve's 2%. Now, the Fed has, of course, claimed that they want 2% inflation, which is insanity, because inflation technically should be 0. But for some reason, they feel that 2% is a good thing when you realize that at 2%.
Well, we know why that is. Their theory is that if we can force people to spend their money,
Right.
that will get high velocity,
Right.
and that will awaken the animal spirits, and everything will be honky-dory. Everybody will jump back into the market if we can just squeeze out the savings and make sure everybody spends the money.
Well,
so they make it stupid for you to put cash away.
Right.
And so what else are you going to do but spend it? I mean, or invest it in something. So.
Well, you say invest, you can speculate in something.
Well,
That's
yeah,
what you've seen. A
Well,
lot of speculation. And
You
people,
could invest it in gold if you wanted to.
that's a speculation.
Okay.
It was $1,800 not too long ago. It's $1,200 now or thereabouts. So, you'd have lost a
Well,
third of your money.
but the thing is gold has an intrinsic value, so you
Well, yes,
you
it does, but I mean, it's as jewelry or something, and it does some things like on printed circuit boards and so forth. It can do whatever. You're right. It does have some. The point being that if the interest rates continue to increase, what they're saying here is that the path of rising interest costs in the years to come could crowd out other government spending priorities and rattle the markets. Okay, we said that. Along this path, the government is expected to pass the following milestones. It will spend more on interest than it spends on Medicaid in 2020. More in 2023 than it spends on national defense. And more in 2025 than it spends on all non-defense discretionary programs combined. Now, one of the things you have to realize is that currently, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security eat up about 2/3 of the budget. And the other third is made up of what they call discretionary spending, of which about 20% of that is defense spending. All the other stuff is stuffed into that little, that little small pie piece. So all the other spending, all the departments and everybody else, and Department of Education, for instance.
Right. Well, because those weren't original purposes
No,
or
not at all. Not at all.
parts of the government.
So anyway, that's for the funding for national.
Well, and does that even count the additional $20 trillion that we're going to add to the overall debt in the next 10 years?
Well, of course, we're only on track right now to add another 10 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
Only.
I know. And so they'll only double that is my speculation.
Right. Okay. And you could very well be right. I mean, I have no problem with that. I mean, when you think that the last decade was 10 trillion.
Right.
And so
every president going back for a long time has doubled the debt, including Clinton, including everybody, going back to Reagan, and in fact, even I think before that. But now, of course, we spend as much every quarter as Reagan spent every year.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
well, that's not all. The other little minor problem is that until fairly recently, we were still a creditor nation, in that people owed us more money than we owed them. So we've actually had some places where we could get our money from, so to speak. I forget exactly what it was, but we were a creditor nation, and that, again, people owed us money, and they were supposed to pay us.
In private transactions?
No, government transactions. I mean, the fact is that, well, no, private, that's right. Unfortunately, now, we're a debtor nation. We owe more money than money is owed to us.
Well, isn't that the same debt we're talking about, the 20 trillion? I mean,
yeah, right. But see, back when it was 4 trillion,
people owed us
10 trillion.
Right.
So yeah.
And now they don't.
Now they don't. Right. So that's the deal. So we're doomed on that. And but I'm saying that's one of the big. I mean, these are really matter. I mean, once you start to realize that you're spending more on debt than on defense, how long do you think that's going to last?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So. Okay, let's see. Let me just hold on a second. Stan, he says defeated play. Okay. CNN made good on its threat Tuesday, filing a lawsuit against the Trump administration in federal court, demanding that the White House return reporter Jim Acosta's permanent press pass.
So I read the lawsuit.
Did you? Okay, good. I'm glad.
Yes.
Counselor Curtis has read the lawsuit.
Yeah, it's
what, First and Fifth Amendments?
Yeah, it's a joke. It's a publicity stunt.
Okay.
It doesn't read like a normal lawsuit.
Really?
I mean, it's in the same format, but
I mean, it's got the little words up here someplace.
Yeah.
Versus so and so.
Right. It's got those.
And double
But
space.
then the facts are all about what a glorious reporter Jim Acosta is. It's
Okay.
like Jim Acosta is the best reporter, and he embodies the press, and their argument is that he has a constitutional right to be in the press room.
Right.
Which is like such a bastardization of the First Amendment. Like, he is the press. Jim Acosta is the press, so that's why I'm proposing the Acosta Amendment, which to the Constitution, which I think will grant the press sort of rights to go anywhere and do anything, because that's what they're after. It seems like it seems to me like they must have made the decision that it was worth paying Trump's legal fees
Okay.
for them to file this document, because I can't imagine that they're going to get anywhere with it.
Well, they filed against the administration, right?
Yeah. The facts themselves are facts that I would never put forth in front of a judge. The way they did it was they skewed the facts all in their favor in their factual statement,
Well,
which is
yeah.
that's not what you do.
Oh, it isn't?
No.
I did not know
You
that.
put the facts in there as they are, and then you argue that they should be interpreted one way or the other.
I got you.
But you don't put, because a judge is going to read this stuff, and if you say something's a fact and it's not a fact, then you're lying to the judge, basically. And they, for example, in the facts, they left out the fact that the president did start to answer Acosta's question. They also completely left out the fact that he actually touched her.
Yeah.
They didn't put that in there. They said that he did not put his hands on her, Well, he put his hand on her.
Not hands.
Not hands. Okay? But he put his hand on her. If you didn't see him put his hand on her in any of the videos, then you're blind. I mean, that's just you.
Right.
It's there. It's there, and the judge is going to see that. And when he sees that, and he sees the recitation of facts, he's going to be like, "Oh, really? Okay. I see where you're going with this." And
Get out.
Pretty much. That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, CNN, such an action. CNN contends that in 2005 this is blatantly unconstitutional. Blatantly, not just sort of
Yeah. Well,
blatant.
they have to. Look, like I
Wrongful
said-
revocation of these credentials violates CNN and Acosta's First Amendment rights of freedom of the press and the Fifth Amendment rights to due process.
Right. Yeah. They claimed that their reason for revoking his credentials was a pretext, and that really it's his fight with the president that's been going on for a long time. The president is known to be in a fight with CNN and Jim Acosta.
Right.
So
Yeah.
he's systematically attacking the press, starting with Jim Acosta,
Nice.
having nothing to do with this incident. That's their allegation.
Right. Now, and where does it go from here? Yeah, where does it go from here? Oh my God, who's next on the list?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So anyway, it's interesting because he was deprived of his property, namely his pass.
Right, yeah.
Without due process. Well, of course, if somebody says we're not sure that pass is actually his.
Well, it's not the pass; it's the access and what he can do, and it's his job. He's got that's an actual. They're not wrong about asserting that his job has been impinged. What they're wrong is that the White House didn't have a good reason to do it.
Yeah.
They did. He touched a girl. You don't put your hands on somebody or your hand.
Yeah, your hand, right. Put it on yourself.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. The White House Correspondents Association, which does the thing every year, they have issued a statement in support of the lawsuit, which is what you would expect.
Sure.
The President of the United States should not be in the business of arbitrarily picking men and women to cover him.
Yeah, right.
There's nothing arbitrary about this at all. No. It's, and finally, my last item is a little bit of a light note. I did not realize this.
Oh, okay.
Until recently, I mean, a lot of places, you go and they ask you, are you M or F?
Okay.
Male or female?
Yes.
In 2014, Facebook introduced 50 gender options, including intersex, gender nonconforming, non-binary, and androgynous. And they give the links. 50. I mean, it's fine. Private company, they can do whatever they want. I know that, but I mean, how do you go through and say, well, I'm one of those, and then I'm one of these too, and I'm that one.
Well, and then there's a combination or something.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So the thing is, it's not only 50. If you think about what are the permutations of combining that, it ends up being like 20 million.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so I don't know if you I sent over a news story from our Polk County this week.
Ah, okay.
About gender in our schools here.
I saw that.
And this
This is beyond belief.
well,
No, this is. I started to think to myself, what? It's a long article.
yes.
It's really long, but go ahead. Sum it up.
The short of it is, our schools have LGBTQPA advisors who are allowed to make policy without consulting the school board or the parents, which allows the kids to self-classify their genders and then to attend or to go to places where the genders have traditionally been separated, like bathrooms and showers and stuff like that. So we'll see how it all turns out. But basically at this point, school administrators are being asked to supervise kids who want to switch showers. So there you go.
Well, one of the guys there said he was embarrassed to go in there and supervise this in that article.
Yeah, one of the teacher coach didn't want to go in and watch a girl shower.
Yeah, I know.
Because she's a minor.
Right.
And
I mean,
you get real close to some kind of deviant sexual act when you're standing there staring at a girl.
Close. You're all over it.
Well,
I'm sorry. No, you think about it. you can be arrested for what do you call it, peeping tom or whatever you call it,
Well,
voyeurism.
right.
Voyeurism. What is the difference between supervising and voyeurism? I'm sorry.
That is exactly where I was going with that.
Okay.
And you're totally right. There's a question of.
I'll supervise. Is this my day?
That's right. That's right. No, it's like yeah. Well,
Is little Henrietta going to be in there?
we will find out how far this goes because
Oh my
we're
God.
sort of at the tipping point, I think. So
You know, it was well. If you read some of the complaints from the parents, they weren't told. Their
Right.
kids would come in and tell, and they'd say, well, "What the hell are you doing?"
well, and what's also funny is the teachers aren't allowed to discuss it with
Right,
the parents
the teachers aren't
unless
allowed
they
to
get
discuss
express permission from the kids.
Right. I mean, this is what's funny.
sorry, your child told me not to tell you about his grades.
I mean, it's even worse than that. I mean, they you know, this privacy business has gone. You have to understand that they are guardian ad litem, is what they are. The teachers and so forth. They actually are supposed to have some discretion,
I agree.
and yet they're taking away that discretion.
Well, and it's because of the mix with the state. The fact is, the more intertwined they get with the state, the more their hands are tied in terms of what they can do and how they can respond.
and this is good for education. How?
Well, this is societal action. You know, what they're trying to do is they're trying to help the disadvantaged, you know, the few people. There's 1 or 2 or 3% of the people who are, feel uncomfortable or whatever.
I can understand that. I can tell you from personal experience. In my high school, I was friends with a kid who had some problems. He couldn't speak very well. I learned to understand all he said and everything. But he was really a funny guy. I mean, he was really hysterical. But he walked funny. He couldn't do, and he spoke funny and everything. But most of the kids just, you know, they didn't bully him because I was around. Mm-hmm. But basically, he was prime candidate for being bullied if that had happened. But it was just one of those things where I was a geek, you know, in high school. So I was naturally, I went with other geeks.
Well, I don't know. Like I say, we'll see what the solution. There was a great scene in the movie Starship Troopers where there's a bunch of adults, soldiers, men and women, and they're all showering together, and there's no problem. It's like, well, yeah, because they're adults, okay, but these are kids,
Right?
And I don't know that you can expect the same discretion to be displayed by children.
Well, yeah, that's not all. I mean, I don't know if this was down there was a high school or a middle school or what was it?
I think it's high school.
Okay, because I was going to say if it's a middle school or a middle school, for instance.
Yeah.
These are people that haven't really figured out
Right.
a lot of stuff,
Right.
and so I mean I know that when I was in the 8th grade, the guys all showered together. It was no big
Right.
deal, but of course it was a boys' school, so
Right.
But still,
Throw a bunch of girls in there, what happens?
yeah.
You know.
No, I mean you got to realize that even by the 8th grade, our hormones are starting to ramp up.
Yeah.
I mean, you really got to believe that this.
Well, like I said, I guess we'll find out.
I guess we will.
So-
It is unfortunate that it has to come to this, and that the government has to get involved in it somehow.
Well, I mean, the question is, do they? I mean, I don't know if they do or not.
They're probably going to, however.
Oh, they're totally going.
That's what I'm
they're
saying.
involved.
Right.
The question, to me, this goes back to I believe if we had a much more private education system, then you could take it up on a school by school basis, parent by parent basis,
Absolutely.
lawsuit by lawsuit basis.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And,
no question about it.
No big deal. So, all right, I got a couple of things.
Okay,
here.
good.
since we're here talking about stuff, we got a few minutes to. So I'm going to take us first back to the California fires,
Okay.
back to Bear Days, and the reason I want to bring this up is because I noticed an interesting story this week. Kim and Kanye.
Okay.
Do you know who they are?
Yeah, yeah. Well, they actually are helping people a lot.
Well, exactly. And how do they do that?
I don't know.
They hired a
hired-
private fire protection service.
Right.
Okay. Now think about this. Who would have thought of that? The free market? Oh my God! A market solution?
Yeah. Right.
And yet they protected their block. Now I saw one of the commenters was like, "Man, the fire was nowhere near their house." Okay, fine. Maybe it never got anywhere close. My question is, maybe these private firefighters could be employed in the places that there was fire, right? maybe we shouldn't be relying on the government to set up the system of fire stops that was or was not in place prior to this fire happening. Maybe if Kim and Kanye had a private fire service just on call, and they called them every few months and said, hey, what's the conditions out here? And they came out and looked around and cut some trees or dug some ditches or whatever it is.
Well, it's the same thing as an insurance company lowering your premium if you go exercise.
That's what. It's exactly right. This is what I'm talking about. From my perspective, I don't know why we're not exploring. Here's my question to everybody.
I think it has to do with liability, but go ahead.
Okay. My question to everybody is this. How much do you pay for your fire protection?
Actually, I can tell you.
Really?
It's on the bill. Yeah, I have. The fire protection on my tax bill is a separate line item.
Really?
Yeah.
And how much is it?
I forget. I could go find out, but it's like for each year. I think it's $30 or something.
$30 a year.
Something like. I think it's like
Okay.
that. I don't think
It sounds like a bargain.
Yeah. Now you understand. I've got a fire hydrant right out here.
Right.
That like 20 feet away, and I've got a fire engine about 2 miles away.
Okay. Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm not saying that you're not well covered. What I'm saying is that nobody does any studies to figure out whether or not the socialized fire department is doing what it should be doing.
No.
There's no competition.
Well, not only is it, they crowd out the pipe again, but one of the things is how do you measure something like that?
Well, something like this, I would think. That is to say, how did this fire start? Were there fire walls in place? What was the management of the area like? These things, I think, are all questions. I mean, I know, this is the stuff that President Trump brought up, and so I guess
I was pilloried.
Yeah, exactly. So here I go walking into the twirling blades.
That's it.
But I don't think it's an unreasonable question since we're sitting here looking at 40 deaths and thousands of homes destroyed.
Boy, and that's
to figure. And also, as it turns out, apparently this fire may have been started by utility sparks.
Right.
So so we have two government agencies involved.
No, Pete, they're private.
The utility is private?
Yeah, it's Pacific Gas and Electric's private.
Okay. All right. Well, so I take that back.
Okay.
But still, even so,
They're regulated to hell, but I mean they're private.
Well, then that regulated to hell means quasi-private.
Right. But
So
they're private. It's
do they face competition?
good question.
So I'm
is
it like Florida Power and Light is private? And they've got an area that nobody can compete with them in.
And the reason is that one of the reasons is because of the regulations that say it's wasteful to run two power
Look,
lines,
I understand,
which
or
is
even,
bullshit.
and what they'll say is it's dangerous with the fire people. They'll be like, well, we don't want, and I know this from the legal cases, they've had volunteer fire departments in the past,
Right.
and people will say, well, you can't use them because they get in the way of the other firefighters. They put themselves in harm's way and have to be rescued and stuff like that. Well, look, from my perspective, they're firefighters. They're the same people. It's got to be
Right.
retired other firefighters who already are pre-trained and everything. That's how you would screen your company that you would hire. Is, do you guys know what the heck you're doing? And they would face liability like anybody else, any other company. If they blew something, they would be bonded and whatever, and they could be sued and
unless,
insured.
of course, it's a public fire company, in which case there is no liability.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, right.
That's what I'm saying. You've got more recourse if the fire department is actually private,
Yeah.
or the utility is private, and can be sued. So anyway, just thought I'd bring that up, and it'll be interesting to see what people thought about that. Another thing, real quick, I'm going to take us over to New York City again.
Teleport.
Oh, shoot! You're back in the.
Where am
I
I?
figured out where you are. You are in Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's district.
Oh, good deal. Hey, honey.
That's right. So you're in her place there, up in Brooklyn. Now she's up in arms because Amazon is moving into their district.
Yes.
Their headquarters.
Right.
And they want $48,000 per job in tax incentives to do so.
Really?
$1.5 billion in tax incentives from New York State to place there. That was the deciding factor. They were offering like 10 times as much tax benefits as Tennessee and like twice what the Virginia was offering or something.
So this is a tax rebate from the state?
Yes.
Not the county, not the...
Well, it's a multi-layered rebate system.
Okay,
you know,
somebody-
they're trying to get everybody involved in it.
Okay.
And it's a combination of tax relief, and there's even some cash incentives. It looks like.
So the people up in Buffalo who are, forever work, like can't even see the Amazon anyway, they're going to pay.
Well, and so this is what AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is upset about.
Right.
She's like, hey man, why are we paying this $1 billion company, this $1 trillion company, Bezos, for these jobs?
Right.
And of course, we know what's happening here. It's not like he's collecting cash, although I did say there is some cash incentive. It looks like he might collect $300 million in cash, which is unusual. But the vast majority of it is basically tax incentives, which means they're not going to collect some money from Amazon
Tax
for
forgiveness.
for a period of time,
Right.
and then the taxes kick in later.
Right.
And so the concept is, of course, that New York State will benefit enormously from having Amazon there. Amazon's going to start off investing $2.5 billion in the area.
They said they're going to 25,000 people working there.
Exactly. It's going to be an incredible boon to whatever area it is. Now, I'm on the same page with AOC in terms of municipalities and governments giving companies cash to build their stadiums and stuff like that.
That is atrocious because they never work out.
Well, one of the commenters was talking about the Cleveland Stadium and how much it's brought into Cleveland.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
I would too. I know it.
Typically, they lose their butts.
Yeah, or it creates something for a little while and then it dies out, and
And
there's
not
a
only that, it
starvation.
squashes some other areas right around there.
Yeah, I think it all has to be taken into account.
Nobody ever does, When
Right.
they sell it, they don't.
Right. So we'll see.
Everything's good.
But-
But AOC is interesting that she's brought that up. One of the things that I've always said here in Florida is that we have something in Florida that a lot of places don't. We've got the climate. We shouldn't have to offer an incentive to anybody. I mean, teachers. When teachers are always complaining that they don't make as much as they would in Chicago or something. Who wants to live in Chicago? No offense. You can drive to the beach here on the weekends, for God's sakes. I mean, you've got some lifestyle here without, if the state would get out of the way. The point is that people come here just naturally anyway.
Yeah, and that's been the case since the invention of air conditioning in the
Right.
30s. And then mosquito control later, and then finally Doppler radar, so you can tell when the storms are coming.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, with those innovations and then mass communication and mass transportation, Florida's become a much more livable place, and I think will continue to become
Well,
that.
yeah, we don't have any inheritance tax, although
or income tax. I mean, there's
or income tax, right?
Right. So I mean that's all a factor. Location is certainly huge. So I don't know. Well, I got one more thing here, real quick.
Where am I going to go now?
Yeah, I'm taking us over to Israel because there's been some.
Da, 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 da.
Uh-oh.
Where have you got me?
All right. It looks like you only made it to Gaza.
Okay.
I think you're in Gaza, but I'm in Israel.
Okay.
I'm at a nice beach resort here, and so I just wanted to bring up the war over there that's going on.
Right.
400 rockets fired into Israel, according to one headline I read. I didn't read the fine print there. I saw that apparently Israel had responded, hit 150 targets in Gaza. That's
But they of course they roar over there with the F-5 or with the big jets.
yeah.
And I think they managed to usually shoot down about 2/3 of the rockets.
Yes, they do. They have the Iron Dome. They get a bunch of them.
Okay.
And so I saw where some rockets had hit, but I didn't see a whole lot of damage.
Well, there was at least one Israeli that was seriously wounded, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm sure.
I'm sure. With that number, you got to be kidding me.
Seriously, but it's just amazing. You don't see any of that for some reason in the mainstream press. I mean, I got this from either Twitter or Ron Paul or something. Or,
Yeah.
although actually Ron's kind of he's pro-Palestine actually, as it turns out.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, let's see. All right. Well, it's 5 o'clock. We started a little bit late. I had a couple of other things, but I guess we can't really get to them. The only other thing I'll point out just super fast, there was an article this week written by a scientist about the global warming situation. And what he said was, he started off with
It's a hoax.
yeah, right. He started off with a hypothetical. And he said, would you put your child on a plane where there was a 5% chance of catastrophic failure, that a 5% chance that the plane would crash?
No.
Well, what's the alternative? It should be the question. The hypothetical has no boundaries. It's like, why are we talking about a plane in the first place?
Right.
You know, is the place where they're leaving going to explode 100%?
Yeah.
Then absolutely you put them on the plane 5%. Is there a boat that's going to go down? You know, there's no parameters to the hypothetical. So, and to me, this illustrates perfectly the global warming argument. It's because what you have is a bunch of people who are saying, look, we've got this incredible catastrophe that's way off in the distance and has at least a 5% chance of coming true. Yeah, but the solution is going to hurt people today. They're talking about cutting carbon emissions today, which will obviously impact jobs and energy distribution today and have a detrimental impact on people's lives. A 100% chance that it's going to have a detrimental impact. So that's the alternative. And then you look, and the reason I brought this up is only because China announced this week that they've made another leap forward in their fusion reactor. They produced 100 million degree temperature on Earth, 100 million degrees Celsius. And they sustained a fusion environment for 101 seconds, which they're projecting now that by 2030 they'll have a fusion reactor online. And of course what this means for carbon emissions is a drastic reduction. So all you people who are afraid that by 2045 or 2050 there's going to be a huge amount of carbon in the air, don't worry about it, because by 2030 technology is going to find a way.
No, there'll be no more coal miners' daughters.
Right, unless there's one potential way this won't happen. Well, that's okay. Two potential ways. That's right. And that is if the government gets involved in wind power, solar power, and all these other sustainable energies and crowds out the nuclear fusion money and the nuclear fusion research money, then you'll push it off 10 years or 20 years and create the apocalypse by virtue of trying to avoid it. So
It reminds me a little bit of the battle between Edison and Tesla. You know, when they would electrocute an elephant or something to prove how bad alternating current was compared to direct blah blah blah.
And the whole reason we have the electric chair is just for that demonstration.
Right, exactly. Oh my.
So yeah. So anyway, that's all I got.
Okay.
So
Just
hey, thanks for joining us, guys. You notice we got Gene and look at that, PJ and Mrs. May and Tiffany. Man,
So they found us.
yes.
Good deal.
So yeah.
So we're going to find out what went wrong on the other Facebook page.
Sorry about that, y'all. And
I'm thinking that what's his name don't like us anymore.
yeah, exactly. Me too. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Soon.
Sunday, 4:00, one way or the other.
That's right.
Hey, I wonder if they. You don't suppose they canned us because of our bumper music?
Yeah, it's possible. It's definitely.
Somebody's got to tell them that this is so. Our bumper music is free. I mean, it's what do you call it?
It is copyright. There it is. Matt's Blues. Thank you, Kevin MacLeod. We have a license, so don't ban us, please, Facebook. So we'll check it out. We'll double check and see what's going on with that. But anyway, thanks. Oh, look at that. We dropped 340 frames, which is 0.3%. Nothing.
Okay,
So.
okay, good.
All right. See ya.